Welcome your hosts, Caddy Frank and Aaron Fitzgerald, as they lead discussions about substance use disorder and the journey to recovery. You're listening to Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution.
Oh my goodness, I love that tune. I just gotta let that roll in there. Good day, everybody. My name is Caddy Frank. I am your host of Minnesota Recovery's Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution.
Yay.
And you are across the table from me.
That's right. I'm Aaron Fitzgerald, and I'm happy to be here. Whoop, whoop.
Woo woo!
Quick special thanks to our generous funders, including the Patrick and Amy Butler Family Foundation, Otto Bremer Trust, the Sauer Family Foundation, the Hardenberg Foundation, alongside many other foundation, corporate, and individual contributors for making this podcast series possible.
We must thank those people who are out there making this possible.
Absolutely.
So super thank you, folks.
Yes.
And anybody else who'd like to donate too, but we'll talk about that later. So, Miss Erin, here we are on a really beautiful day. My goodness.
Yay.
Oh, the sun is out. The things are blooming. It's just fabulous. So what's right with you today, my friend?
Aside from the beautiful weather, I am, what's right with me? I just want to reflect on Mother's Day for a hot second. I got to spend it with 4 mothers who, 3 of us came together in just kind of random ways, and all have similar experiences and stories. And had we not just opened up and spoken about life, we wouldn't have known that and created the bond that we have. And so it's just really nice to have those kind of ladies in my life. We didn't meet in recovery or through recovery, but we just have very similar stories. And then also my stinky daughter, I don't know how she does it. I don't know when she does it. She finds pictures of me when I was younger. I don't know. I probably handed her the book and walked away. I did, I'm sure, plenty of times. And she either takes the picture or takes pictures of the pictures, and then she posts them.
Oh my. I suppose that was a little surprise for you?
Yeah, she had posted a picture of my 19th birthday when I was in Mazatlan on spring break with some girlfriends. That was a fun picture to look back at.
I bet. Wow. That's really, that's
cute.
That's interesting. She's just a little spy for you.
Yeah, she's so sneaky.
Just a little sneaker there.
Yes.
Yes, not little. She's a grown woman at this
she
point.
is. She's a wonderful grown woman. I'm very grateful for her.
Wow. That's really fun.
Yeah. How about you, Caddy? What's right with you?
What's right with me today? So I told Aaron it's going to be kind of a funny. So my dear sweet neighbor, Marlene, she is having her roof redone. So she texted me late last night. She's like, oh, by the way, I'm having my roof redone. And she said, they're going to be there early. And I was like, oh, great. I'm like, oh, I have to get up early. So they showed up about 6:45, which is just a wee bit earlier than I'm used to getting up. And I was just giggling because it's like all these tromping feet and banging on roofs and languages being spoke that I don't understand. And I just thought, wow, I live in the city. This is really cool. This is just really cool. And it's a beautiful day. And so my neighbor, because if anybody knows about getting roofs done, it's loud inside your house. And then she can't be in her own backyard. So she's like, by the way, I'm in your backyard, just having my coffee.
Surprise.
So I woke up and I went out onto my little deck I have, and there she was sitting on our lawn furniture in the back. I'm like, hi. And then I turned to the guys on the roof next to me. I'm like, hi. And I'm crazy looking. I got the hairs all over the place. I got the jammies on. And, I'm just all that in a bag of chips.
Yes.
But it just made me giggle this morning because life goes on. We just got to do what we got to do.
So cute.
Yeah. So we are going to have a show that is a little bit more of a surprise because the guest that we had just unfortunately wasn't able to make it today. So we came up with a topic when we're going to call it Planting the Seeds of Recovery. And where we're going to go with this conversation is there are folks out there who aren't ready to stop. And I think there's a lot of people who struggle with the people that won't stop with their substance, whatever that looks like. Or there's people that might go back to their use. And those people who will care for those people get really confused. Like, why would you go back to that?
Yeah. And there's also people that don't recognize that maybe they are struggling with substance, but other people recognize it in them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was probably a little bit of my journey in the beginning. I'm like, hey, I'm just having fun.
Right. Yeah.
And so we want to talk about how you can be supportive to individuals about planting these seeds. It's one of the things we discuss in our class, and that when we just talk about things and talk to people and meet them where they're at versus try to tell them what they should do or just stop drinking. That was a
Mhm.
conversation we had with a lovely human here at the station. And talk about that word just.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about that. Because if we just stop drinking, boy, wouldn't that be great?
Hmm.
But just, you said it earlier. What is that?
Well, it can really minimize things, right? If
Mhm.
I'm saying like, well, I'm just a peer recovery specialist.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm like, you're not just a peer recovery specialist. That's fantastic.
Mhm.
You say just about lots of things.
Yeah, I'm just a partner to my guy.
Hmm.
No, I'm a partner to my guy.
Hmm.
So we can really minimize individuals if we try to say, this is what you should do. This is just the thing that needs to happen. Why can't you do that?
Hmm.
And there's a lot of people that struggle that I think you said it, Erin, it was really interesting. And that is sometimes people don't know that they have a problem,
Hmm.
but other people recognize it. And then when we say, well, can you just drink a little bit less or can you use a little less pot? Can you just do that? And then they look at you like, no,
Yeah.
I can't.
Either I can't or I just don't want to just yet.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So where do we go from here?
Hmm.
So when we're working with individuals, we're living with individuals, we're the neighbors of individuals, and we see a struggle. Remember, you don't know everything that's going on in the background. And there are a lot of people that carry a lot of struggles, and they use some sort of substance to take away the pain, numb the pain. And if we come up to them and say, I've just been like watching all your recycling in the recycling can, and I really think you should just pull back from, this, that, the other thing.
You noticed I have a recycling problem?
I'm a good recycler. They're all going in there versus in the can,
Yeah.
trash can.
Right. And so how can we then support the person and not exit their life and still be able to have just regular conversations with them, knowing that they're doing something that we think is unhealthy and we think that they should change and we want them to change because we know that there's something better and healthier. But how can we support them without being pushy and just giving them the space to make those decisions on their own?
Yeah, or being judgy.
Yeah.
That judgy thing.
And that judgy.
So I'm going to tell a quick story.
Please do.
So my garage got hit a couple years ago and had it rebuilt. Let's not talk about insurance right now. But anyway, so I came home and the garage is being constructed. And I was noticing there were some like boards that weren't quite where they should be and stuff on the ground. And I thought, okay. So I started just picking up stuff because it's my garage. Thank you very much. I want it to be clean in here as much as it can. So I opened up the recycling bin. Speaking of recycling, well, guess what? There are a bunch of beer cans in there. Now I'm in a home where nobody's drinking anything and nobody does. And it was an interesting experience as a person in recovery to recognize that when we have people that are around us struggling potentially or just don't see it as a problem, that was sort of okay for them to be drinking on the job. Well, it wasn't to me. And it certainly wasn't to the builder that I had. And, they contract things out. So boy, oh boy, did they come and give me a big apology. And they brought in a new contracting team and they fixed the thing. But that was like a real interesting moment where I'm like, this individual possibly doesn't see that they're really doing anything wrong because that's how they make it through the day. And how many people, and I'm using air quotes here, make it through the day with some sort of substance tool.
Yeah, crutch of some sort.
Yeah. I mean, it was a real big moment for me to just sort of like, for a second, I had to put myself in someone else's space. And then I, of course, had to speak up for myself because this is, this is being done. So we're going to take a quick break and come back. And we're going to talk about these little seedlings that we put around folks and see what we can do with that.
Great.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Redefining Recovery, a Recovery Revolution. I'm Erin, and I've got Caddy across the table from me here. And we are talking about planting seeds of recovery. And we were just thinking that it doesn't necessarily have to be substance related when we're planting seeds to folks. So we're talking about substance use because that's what the show is about, but maybe just putting other twists on it so that it can be more relatable for folks. I have a participant that I work with, and she's in recovery from substance use. And she has a significant other who has been struggling with his gambling issues. And so she's been very supportive in that. And he's, of course, been supportive in her recovery from substance. But a situation that came up recently was she wanted to get a part-time job working pull tabs at a bar. She felt confident that she could do that without feeling tempted to drink because that wasn't really the substance that she was using. But she's concerned that her significant other will come in and want to visit with her while she is selling these pull tabs. And so it's, just planting seeds, the conversations that they have. And she likes to get advice from me because, again, it's similar situations. It doesn't matter what the situation necessarily is.
Yeah. That's so interesting that, sometimes you wonder, why would she want to go to a bar and do pull tabs when she's got somebody who struggles? But maybe it's an environment that she knows people and it's comfortable and it's the right hours.
And it really is all of those things. Plus, it's really conveniently close to home and she's just familiar with the people.
Yeah. So sometimes we have to kind of hedge our bet on, no pun intended, sorry, that was inappropriate. We have to just sort of look at the situation. It's like, what's going to work out? But then having that conversation, and she's had that conversation with you, and maybe she's had that conversation with her partner.
Yep.
And we hear stories out there of other addictions that are going on. Because again, when we talk about the term addiction, it's that I can't stop doing something, whatever that something is.
I need this thing. I'm coffee addicted.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a parent or two or an adult or two out there that is very much into their gaming.
Sure.
And there's all kinds of stories out there about individuals that have, been locked themselves in basements and they do bathrooming in certain bottles nearby because they can't break away.
Unconventional ways of using the restroom.
Unconventional ways. And I bring that up because it sounds horrifying. And then it sort of sounds like we just giggled about it. But these are people who cannot break away.
Yeah.
They are tied in. This addiction, that dopamine hit is
that obsession.
On fire, folks. And if you think about it, the whole idea around addiction is that you're getting something out of it. Is it food? Is it gaming? Is it gambling? Is it sex? Is it
shopping?
I know. I love a little retail therapy. I went to the dollar store yesterday for work. I was really happy to be in there, but I went in and I went out. But I know that's one of my vices. Having a long retail background, now with all the retail closing, it's a little sad. But there's all these things that bring us pleasure. And sometimes they can overtake us.
Right. And so we just have to have conversations about maybe lessening. And so, it's similar to like harm reduction, kind of that kind of conversation. But how can we do this in different settings and with different humans that are struggling with different addictions? I guess we'll just continue
call
to
it, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I think what comes to my mind is that when somebody is doing an action, a thing that you're like kind of twisting your head at, like, why are you doing that? It's not why or what's wrong. We've talked about this before. It's like, what's going on? What's happened that this is your comfort space? And then when we have those conversations, like, I just can't stand work anymore. And so I'm going to come home and I'm going to put on my headphones and I'm going to play some games and I'm going to it makes me able to disappear. But then that's 4, 5, and 6 hours. And maybe the family is not being loved and cared for. You're not eating dinner with people. Or somebody is, going up to the mall and they're going out there for many hours at a time. So it's like, what do we do, Erin? What is that? How do we say, hey, I'm a little concerned?
Well, just like that, you can.
Hey,
Use your actual words and say, "Hey, friend, I'm concerned about you. What's going on here?" Because a lot of times we do things that are we think less dangerous, like playing on my phone or scrolling through Facebook for hours and hours because I'm bored.
yeah.
And maybe I just need more connections in my life. So
Mm,
ask me what's going on in my life. I
yeah.
don't know. I
Eh,
know that you like scrolling.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Love scrolling.
Yeah.
Love scrolling. Watch those little kitty cat videos and all kinds of stuff. Oh yeah. Yeah. And then lately, you know what I'm into? Okay. I'm not going to go back. I'm going to just fess up. I love watching lawn care videos. I don't know why. Overgrown lawns, and then people just are cleaning them up. For some reason, I figure if I was 20 years younger and I could go out and do that, I'd be doing that.
You
I
mean
don't
just
know.
make them look
Just
beautiful
make them look
again?
beautiful again. Just cut down all the weeds.
Yes.
Anyway, we segued a little bit into
Squirrel.
caddies. Yeah, squirrel. Yeah, into caddies. But so somebody is sitting on their sofa or somebody's sitting in their backyard and they are just disconnecting from life. How
Mm-hmm.
do we get them reconnected? It's like, hey, I miss you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we used to go out to dinner and I'm really missing that time together. So we can approach these things with people, not with, why are you doing that?
Mm-hmm.
But with, wow, I kind of miss our time together.
Yeah. I love connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
The-
reconnecting,
Mhm.
honestly, is one of my favorite things. That reminds me that I recently reconnected with somebody.
Tell me more.
Oh, it's just somebody from my past that I really, for many years, like, I don't know, 20 some years, have really wanted to just basically say thank you to for giving me something that I didn't realize was so important to me for many years.
Mm.
And in the last 5 years has just been more significant since my recovery has gotten stronger. And so reconnecting can be really, what's the word? I was just going to say accelerating.
I
Yeah,
like exhilarating. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be exhilarating.
Well, and if we think about what we know happened during COVID, we know
Yeah.
that drinking went pretty much through the roof.
Mhm.
We know that the use of substances has had an expansion, and we're living the results of what's happened back in the 90s. And here we are in the 2000s and 2020s now. So we're living in this. But I have to remember, COVID really changed how we were communicating, or actually not.
Yes, and people are still isolating, some people.
Struggling.
Yeah, coming back to life from that that seclusion from everybody.
Yeah. And that seclusion is where sometimes our temptations come in.
Mhm.
And I know that's what happened to me. I would, believe it or not, I would seclude myself in a bar
Mhm.
because I would go to a bar by myself.
Right.
And I could be me there. I didn't have to try to explain my actions to anybody, except for maybe an occasional bartender who wanted to cut me off. But we can isolate in very unique ways.
Absolutely.
And what we need to do is remember that if somebody has pulled away from you, we need to remember that we need to invite ourselves back
It's
in.
okay. Yeah, and it feels like uncomfortable kind of, right?
Mhm,
And so getting vulnerable on both sides, being like, "Hey man, I miss you."
mhm.
That's where we really get to build those good relationships and bring people back.
Yeah. So I know that, and then life circumstances, wherever you are in the age contingent, there are parents or siblings that get sick or die,
Mhm.
and that can make us go into our shell a little bit more. I've had a couple of shell moments because of my father passing, but we have to remember when people have big life events that take place, this is another time when it's not the, hey, how you doing? It's, hey, can we go out to lunch? I'd really like to see how you're doing in person.
Yes.
And if somebody doesn't want to do that, then say, hey, can we FaceTime? I miss actually talking to you. Can we just talk on the phone?
Mhm.
That connection thing is important because if we can get away from texting, love texting, don't misunderstand me. Love it. But I know that when I get on, like last night, I avoided a phone call from someone because I needed to have some downtime. And so I texted them this morning and said, sorry, I needed some downtime last night.
Mhm.
But I said, I'm going to call you later today because I realized what I've done is that I've did a little bit of isolation. I did a little bit of like, oh, I don't want to talk about stuff. And then I realized, Caddy, that's not good for you.
Yes, I do this frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm very good at ignoring people.
Yes. And so are other people.
Yes.
And so when other people are, let's not use the word ignoring,
Sure.
are avoiding us, or maybe they know that we know that we know that they know
Mhm.
that something's going on that might be an unhealthy activity.
Mhm.
So they just want to separate
Mhm.
because they're afraid of the judgment or their own shame coming on them. And so this whole idea of planting seeds with people is like, hey, I just want you to know I've been thinking about you. That could come in a text with someone. And
Mhm.
maybe you don't get a reaction, but then you maybe make a phone call, say, hey, just following up that text with an actual voice. Here I am.
Yeah, or depending on if you know the people or who they are, how they would react to like a silly GIF, maybe they would actually
Nice.
respond to something like this, or I don't know. Generally, I feel like these, when we're reaching out to people, it's somebody that we know and love, right, in
Mhm.
these scenarios. And so personalize it. You don't have to make it so straightforward. You can,
Mhm.
which, I
I
mean, you know what I mean?
I
Mm.
love that idea. Love that idea. Just a random I don't know, can't do ice cream on the front porch
Well, I
because
mean,
that would be just awesome. But yeah, like maybe just a little bit of flowers or a
anything.
card.
Yeah.
I mean, wow, what a great idea.
Like a handwritten card.
Oh, even better.
Mm.
Saying I care about you. Not even I miss you because that could make someone feel a little bit bad about not connecting, but
Yeah.
hey, I'm thinking about you.
Mm-hmm.
I just want you to know I do love you.
Mm-hmm. Remember that time?
Yeah.
Maybe
Ooh.
throw a memory in there.
Love that.
Mm.
Positive memory. Let's just make sure it's
Well,
positive
yes,
memory.
yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of times when people are struggling and they're isolating and they're not wanting to talk about what's going on, they're living in that shame space.
Focusing just on the thing. Yeah.
Mhm. And what we need to do is say, there's a lot of good memories too.
Yeah, for
Like what
sure.
your daughter did to you on Mother's
Oh
Day.
my
Send you a
gosh.
picture of yourself at 19 years old, loving that, thinking that's fabulous.
It was fabulous.
Yeah. So, when I have been with individuals that I know have been struggling, and myself, it's that whole idea of stretching out of our comfort zone.
Mhm.
Because if we stretch, then somebody else might stretch.
Mhm.
And I admittedly have tried to stretch out of my comfort zone with somebody who's struggling. And I am now recognizing I kind of dropped the ball because I wasn't exactly a person in recovery who works in the field. I wasn't exactly sure what to say to someone.
Mhm.
You'd think I'd have this down pat,
Yeah, some
but
days are better than others.
and sometimes it is hard, but I'm now recognizing I'm going to give this person a phone call, but first a text just to say, hey, been a while, want to reconnect and
Mhm.
find out how their person is doing.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of people involved in this situation.
Mhm.
And so sometimes the main individual who's sort of like poking the bear on this is so lost that they're reaching out and it's on the person they're reaching out to say, "Oh, this is so uncomfortable, but I'm going to have this conversation."
Mhm.
And so remember that if you think you're uncomfortable, think about that person who's struggling.
Yeah. And what if you get like pushback from the person that you're trying to connect with?
I
Where's
think, yeah. What do you think what have you done if you've reached out to someone? What have you done when someone says, "No, I don't want to talk about."
So I guess I just think back to a gal who I met in the walls of AA, but she didn't necessarily belong there.
Mhm.
And so I'm glad that we met there.
Yeah.
But she had talked to me about drinking alcohol, and that wasn't the substance that she had struggled with. And so we just had some conversations about where that would go and how it would lead and how it wasn't a problem. And so she was giving me a little pushback because she didn't want to talk about it being a problem or a potential problem.
Mm.
And so we just kind of dropped it. And I said, you know what? We are just going to watch and see what happens. Like if
Right.
you want to continue to do this. And sure enough, she doesn't have a problem with alcohol. She's just been kind of chilling and relaxing and doing life as she is. But she gave me resistance, but she was right in
Isn't
that
that
case.
interesting?
Hmm.
Well, it makes me think of someone that I know too, a lovely woman who I met years ago, and I was going to Al-Anon. I had a partner at the time who was messing with my head. I'm just going to say it like it is. And so these are the other things that happen where individuals who are in relationships with people that are struggling, like that tight relationship, sometimes when you need help to help yourself to possibly help the other person.
Hmm.
And so I went to this group and I was getting what I sort of needed out of it. You always we test drive stuff in recovery. AA could work, Al-Anon could work, NA could work, Narcotics Anonymous, all these different things. So there's all these seeds that can be planted, and sometimes they stick, and sometimes they don't.
Mm-hmm.
To your point, and so I remember I met this woman in this Al-Anon group, and I had that moment where you like beep 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 beep. I like radared in on her, and she was talking about her partner at the time, and we met after the meeting, and I said, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're, part of this group. And I'm like, so tell me how you are. She's like, oh, I'm just fine. I'm just fine. It's all about that person. And I said, okay, you're lying. She wasn't lying. She just wasn't quite ready. And I just said, you know what? I go to this AA group. This is many years ago. Love AA. Saved my life. Will always say that. And I said, if you ever want to go with me, if you think that's something that you might want to just be part of, why don't you? And she came one day.
Yeah.
And she admitted at that point, well, it isn't just her partner, it's her too.
Mm-hmm.
But I left that open invitation like you did for your person. And we're talking about specific programs at this point, but sometimes that's an entry point, right?
Yeah.
We just know that these are the things that we do or we have done. And then all of a sudden we encounter people that's like, well, I tried that and it really didn't work. Okay, well, what else could work? Mm-hmm. So planting those seeds of what recovery can look like.
Right.
And now this person has been in recovery for upwards 14, 16 years.
Wow.
And doing great. And the partner is no longer in her life and they're doing their jam in the world. But it's all about having those initial conversations and kind of tapping into somebody, but not tapping into the problem, tapping into the love.
Into the human. Yeah, because when you tap into like the problem, if you will, that just becomes really annoying and it builds shame and it builds guilt and walls. Then that's when we start isolating, is when people are focusing on what we're doing that they don't like.
Yeah.
So
what they don't like.
Yeah, exactly.
We're finding great comfort in.
Right. Oh yeah. This is what I need. This is my medicine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But somebody else doesn't like it because it may be affecting their life.
Mm-hmm.
So what we got to do is got to look at the whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that whole idea of like, hey, I'm missing you at the dinner table. What can we get back to doing that? No, work is too stressful. I'm going to sit downstairs. Okay. How about if I sit with you?
Yeah.
Wow. An idea. You put yourself into slightly their world to see what their world looks like. Because sometimes we have to say, versus putting up a wall around somebody or a wall to someone, we have to say, maybe I need to change a little bit to see what's going on in their space.
I'm going to put up a ladder and see what's going on up there.
A ladder. Or actually put a little doorstop in the door.
There you go.
So you get a little crack into their space.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the little things that we want to tell people who are struggling with somebody who's struggling, because that's a painful place. Because then you begin to think, what am I doing wrong? Why can't I help them? Why can't I fix them?
I fix everyone.
Yeah. And then, if you're a person who is a good fixer, I mean, my guy just asked me this past weekend, he's like, Hattie, why are you fixing everybody? I'm like, because that's the only thing I know how to do.
So good at it. Look at me.
I know. I'm a survivor. And so when somebody is that person, you feel like you have maybe the right, you have the tools to try to fix somebody else. And Erin, what do we say in the class?
What? I don't know which one you're talking about.
We can't fix nobody. I got no right to fix anybody.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Ixnay on the fixe. I used to say that.
I hadn't heard that one before.
I know. That's something I forgot to say. And of course, we always relate back to our training at Minnesota Recovery Connection, doing peer-to-peer services, because that's why we're sitting in front of these microphones talking to you, because that's what we do. We help people help people. So, but I say to people very early on when I'm giving them hope in terms of their recovery and how their recovery can help somebody else, that is, you don't have the right to fix anybody. And that is a message I'd like to be very clear to anybody who's listening to this. You don't got no right.
Absolutely. And if you want to go and approach folks and let them know how whatever they're doing is affecting you, I think that that's a wonderful idea, but do it in a way that's loving and caring
Hmm.
and compassionate. Not like you're affecting me and this is ruining my life, but how is it actually affecting you? You're
Hmm.
missing time with this person, and who knows what other um, situations.
Situations. Yeah. No, and I mean, you might not be feeling the love from someone. You might not be getting the emotional and or economical support from someone.
Mm,
You might not be having that intimacy with someone. You might be seeing that your children or the family members are not getting, they're coming to you saying, "What's wrong with this person?
mhm,
You live in the same house. Can't you just make this right?" And you know what? No, you can't necessarily. But you could say to that person who's asking you, "What's wrong with this person?" Why don't you reach out to that person?
There you go.
I mean, it's all about connections.
Hmm.
You think about our name, Minnesota Recovery Connection.
Hmm.
It's all about connections. And if we can begin to help somebody see that we love them and that you want them to be okay, but right now I'm not feeling like you're okay,
Hmm.
but you tell me. That's the space. We want to
Hmm.
walk into that space with care, love, respect, no shame, no judgment, all those different components.
Yep, I'm worried about you and your well-being, not worried about this thing that you're doing.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. And your well being. I
change
think,
the focus.
yeah, maybe somebody's not eating, they're drinking more than they should. They're using some sort of other chemical. So
Mhm,
their body might be breaking down.
mhm,
They're not able to drive a car because you're worried about intoxication. But if you bring that up, they're like, "No, I'm fine.
mm,
Don't talk to me about that." It's like, okay, but I am worried about you getting in a car because I know that you've had X amount of this, whatever
mhm.
that is.
Yeah, and trying not to allow that person to get defensive, like, not coming across as, scolding and
Yeah.
telling,
Hmm.
but just coming across as concerned.
Yeah. And I think what comes to my mind is maybe somebody's had a traumatic experience. We talked a lot about trauma last week,
Mhm,
and somebody's had a lot of trauma around somebody saying, "Hey, you're not supposed to be doing that," or "That's bad." You
mhm,
did that in the past. I mean, if this is resonating with anybody, think about if somebody came from a traumatic past and you as a partner or friend and you come at them with those kind of harshness words, all you're doing is spinning somebody back down. So it's like, "Hey, I'm coming at you with some care and some love and some ideas on how can we reconnect because
mhm.
I miss us."
Yeah, for sure. And when something does, in the beginning, you talked about like when you're supporting somebody who's just had a traumatic thing happening to them, realizing and understanding that trauma happens and we don't know when it's going to affect us. So
Mhm.
continuing to reach out,
Mhm.
not necessarily about that specific thing, but just staying in that person's life if they're important enough to you.
Super important because sometimes we feel like, "Hey, I've tried 3 times and they don't give a,
Hmm.
whatever that
But
is." And
that's
it's
not the case always.
mm-mm,
They just don't want to pick up the phone.
because they're living in that space of like, "Oh, man, if I pick up the phone and they can tell that I'm drunk, they're not gonna wanna talk to me, or I'm high right now, so I'm gonna sound like a battling fool."
Or they can tell I'm depressed.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, different
Or
spaces.
yeah, so the important part is to remember that if you love someone, and it doesn't have to be a romantic partner, if you love or if you care deeply for someone, the idea is plant those seeds of, "I miss you, I love you, I care for you." You could say, certainly, "I'm a little bit concerned about this." So get not, "I'm concerned for you."
Mhm.
That's incomplete information. "I'm concerned because I haven't seen you. I'm concerned because I haven't heard from you. I miss our time walking. I miss our time playing with kittens.
Yes.
I miss some things."
Mhm.
So we're about ready to take another break, but I hope for those of you who have been listening that the whole idea around helping people with substance use disorder is to love and to care and to remember that if we give that, we give life to people, we give them hope, and that's where we're coming from. So we'll be back in a moment.
Welcome back again. Caddy's jamming to the music as usual. Sunset, they'll be playing at the Walk for Recovery on September 21st at the state capitol from 10 to 3. Be there and be square. Just kidding. I suppose that's probably not a phrase we should say, huh?
Be there, be square.
I don't know.
I'm all over it. I think that's
Okay.
great. Be there. Just be there.
That's not
How
a
about
bad
that?
one. Never mind. For some reason, it brought like
Weird
drugs to
things.
mind. I don't
Okay.
know. Anyways, coming back, we've been talking about planting the seeds to recovery and how we can support people who aren't necessarily wanting to listen or ready to, quit doing whatever the case is, whether it's substance use disorder or some other action that could be dangerous. And so, there could be a time and a space where we do have to set boundaries and disconnect from people if it's unhealthy in our lives as well. But one thing that I just want to encourage folks, and we'll talk about it a little more, is if you do have to set those boundaries and separate from that person, if they become healthy to your standards and they want to re-enter your life, I would encourage you to allow that with open arms because they heard you before and now they're coming back for whatever that case may be, whatever the reason is. Maybe they want to make amends or maybe they just want to say thank you or, whatever. So there's sometimes that we do need to separate, Caddy.
Yeah. And I think Aaron and I were just discussing that when we came back. And I'm like, that is such an awesome point because there are times I know I had a very good friend who had to separate from me when I was in the absolute throes. And it's not because she didn't love me. It's because she just couldn't take it anymore because it hurt her so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew she was out there and I knew she cared, but she had to protect herself.
Mm-hmm.
And then all my consequences came into play. And she's like, wow, I love you so much. Look at what you've been able to do. I'm here for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that love came back. But it was hard in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But there's a protection that has to take place for those we love when those we love are hurting us. We have to take that self-care to ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a younger brother who separated from me, and he made it a conscious decision. We had a conversation about it a few years ago, because to me, it just looked like nobody cared and people were exiting my life.
Mm-hmm.
And they were. And we didn't have the conversations. He didn't come to me and say, this is what I see. But he told me that he did try to kind of lift me up and pull me out of my drinking habits without saying the words, I see you struggling and I want you to get better. And so he tried his best. And when he saw that I was just getting worse, he had to make that separation. He was building a family and I really wasn't a healthy person to be a part of that family. And so we've obviously reunited in our family. But yeah.
And it takes somebody getting even a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, those words that he spoke to you and those
Mm-hmm.
words that he wasn't able to utter in a way that you could hear at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
you heard somewhere deep in there potentially.
Yeah. And also because I struggled and I had periods of sobriety and then I would go back and sobriety and go back, he saw that in me. And so I think he was hesitant to come back into my life at certain times because they saw that cycle. Erin's just going to go back. Like, how long is it going to last this time? We've got her today where she's going tomorrow, And so now that I've got a really good solid amount of time, I think people are pretty confident that I'll make it through.
And individuals will do that. They will be in their recovery. They'll be just moving and grooving and having a good life. And then life happens.
And I would hope that if I had another reuse in the future, that I wouldn't get cut off and people wouldn't shame me again. Instead, they would say, whoa, dude, what happened? What was going on? We missed something here. You missed something. You weren't talking to me. We got to get this communication connection back up and running.
Yeah. So versus avoid that human, let's find a place where we can walk into that. Say, hey, oh, wow, you had something happen. And I know that. And what happened to you? I'm missing you. I kind of know, I recognize the behavior. And I want to I want to step in and let you know I'm still here.
Yeah.
I'm still here. I'm
Yeah.
still here. Because let's maybe not go back in time. Let's go forward.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do we let you get into life again
Mm-hmm.
versus hit that wall and then get stuck?
Mm-hmm.
Because man, I've heard stories about individuals who have had a long recovery and then have a situation happen and then they're stuck in that space again.
Mm-hmm.
And they can get out, but it can't do it alone. Can't do it alone.
Yeah, and sometimes it can be hard to be the person on the other side to reach out over and over and over again. We
Mhm.
understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you've
But
got it in you.
if you can do it, but you know what you can do is, let's say you're part of a community, a tribe of friends, a group
Mm-hmm.
of friends, make it a group effort.
Yeah, not like an intervention kind of effort.
No.
But yes.
But just make the phone calls, send the texts,
Yeah,
whatever that contact is.
individually.
Yeah, just say, hey,
Kindly.
yeah. And I had a wonderful group of women that I was with in the throes of my addiction, because I had a long addiction with alcohol. And the stories that I could tell that I won't tell because I'd probably be so embarrassed. But they all stuck around me, even in the worst of the days,
Mm-hmm.
kind of laughed and kind of rolled me into bed periodically. But today we all are still friends,
Mm-hmm.
and they saw the ugly and then they said, wow, look at you now. And we all are loosely still connected. And one of my friends had a tragedy happen, and she didn't struggle the same way, but there were issues that she had that she kind of went back to behaviors. But we just have stayed in contact, and her tragedy will take years for her to get over, if ever.
Mm.
But she can get better. But it's about staying in contact with
Mhm.
people. And if behaviors become surfaced again, say, hey, is there anything I can do for you?
Mm-hmm.
Walk
I
you
love that.
away from maybe the behavior, or bring
Mhm.
something new in to enlighten somebody. It's like, okay, I see that.
Mm-hmm.
But what about this?
Yes. Also, can I just throw one other thing out there? I had a girlfriend who also had to exit my life because, well, I was making situations dangerous because I was babysitting sometimes. That was a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had to cut me out of her life. And she saw or heard through the grapevine
Mm.
that Aaron had found recovery. And she reached out to me to say, hey, here's the deal, man. I really needed to separate, and I'm glad to see that you're back. If there's space for us to be friends again, great. Just know that I'm really happy. And that was really, really nice. And so we are
Wow.
friends again. But
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, and
reach out.
and then people do have to step away, but we can all step back in.
Absolutely.
We can all step back in. And wow, just I'm having like a bunch of stories through my head. There's another
Mhm.
individual that I met in my AA group years ago, and they decided to very controlledly go back to using alcohol. And at the time, I was like, no, you can't do that. That's
There's no
bad.
such thing.
Yeah, you can't. And they're living their best life now,
Yeah.
and they're just fine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to remember that I have to adjust my thinking, because sometimes people can use a substance because maybe they were in the throes of something. And yes, they went into that dark place. And yes, that was the only method they knew how to survive.
Mm-hmm.
But they can come out of it, and then maybe they go back and use it casually.
Mm-hmm.
So remember, if somebody goes back to something, say, hey, this was a problem at one time, and I'm seeing it again. Tell me about this.
Yeah.
So again, it's all about that communication. And going back to the theme of planting the seeds. The planting the seeds is of recovery, but it's really of love and care and concern
Always.
and
Absolutely.
non-judgment. So we're about ready to wrap up the show, and I just want to thank all of you for listening. And join us in supporting our mission of becoming possibly a monthly or an annual donor to Minnesota Recovery Connection. Hey, you could even volunteer for our organization. Your encouragement helps sustain the efforts that we are doing at Minnesota Recovery Connection. So visit us at minnesotarecovery.org. Hit donate, volunteer. You know what? We just want you involved in our community, because the
Absolutely.
larger our community, the more better it is.
Yes. And thank you for listening.